Hey guys, it's Sleepy Reader here. I went to see Iron Man last night, and I enjoyed it. When I left the movie, though, I felt like, well, I don't really have anything to say about this movie, so I had assumed that I was going to talk about it on my channel, and then I thought maybe I wouldn't. But then today I watched Howler Mouse's video about it, which he was not too happy with the movie, or he had, as a comic book fan, he had some objections to it. And I chatted about it on Google Talk, or whatever it's called, with Agent 42Q, and that just started my juices rolling a little bit. I don't have anything really deep to say about it. But a number of kind of random thoughts. One is, Robert Downey Jr. is so good, and they give him all kinds of interesting moments. In fact, I think the whole movie was more focused around him, which is why he spent less time in the armor, so they could give him more moments. But anyhow, and I thought that was a good idea. I think that armor works better in a comic book than in a movie anyway. But so it just reminded me of how often I don't care about Tony Stark when I read in comic books. Yeah, it was often I'll watch a movie of something and think, the book or the comic book version is so much better. But here I did, many times think, well, the comic book version has some flaws that the movie really shows up, particularly in character and dialogue, and, just making something interesting of Tony Stark. I think the comic books, even though they've kind of imitated a bit what has gone on with the way Robert Downey Jr. has portrayed Stark, they still kind of fall back on him being sort of this perfect genius inventor type. They just throw in a little bit of the side of him that's a playboy or something. But they don't really bring it to bear that closely on the story the way they do in the movie. So I really liked the way they handle his character in the movie. I did not mind his interactions with the cute kid and all of that. It's a Hollywood trope, and I thought they played against it in a fun way while still sort of staying true to Hollywood tropes. And that's their job. I also really liked the way they gave him post-traumatic stress I forgot the name of the syndrome. The syndrome that people get when they're in terrible war situations or terrorism or kidnapped or whatever. That they gave him that syndrome from his experiences with the Chitauri. I thought that was very clever, a kind of thing that I haven't seen played with enough in comic books. I mean, a lot of superheroes go through some pretty traumatic events. I think you see it most with Batman, played out well most with Batman in comic books. Less well with a lot of Marvel characters, as far as I know. Or other DC characters, for that matter. Yeah, so let me gather my thoughts. So the other thing, the Mandarin, people feel the Mandarin was really ruined in this movie, and he was, but he is really kind of a cool villain, although with some racist overtones, etc. But it would have been really fun to have a really cool movie Mandarin. However, they did something interesting with the Mandarin anyway, and it fit their needs better. Because I think in the Iron Man movies, they're keeping Tony Stark and Iron Man in a technological world. And so by the trick that they did, I'm trying not to give away too much here, the trick that they did kept the Mandarin within that technological world. And it made for a fun twist that was a bummer to some longtime comic book fans. And I think that one of the strengths of Iron Man in the comic books is his rogue gallery, so it is a little sad there, the Mandarin being one of his lead rogues. I'd love a movie with an armor's war with Iron Man and Doctor Doom. it does look like maybe this video or this movie was also kind of a setup for the possible retirement of Robert Downey Jr. And that's kind of too bad, but maybe also makes sense in terms for him in terms of his career and everything. So anyway, it was an enjoyable movie. I find with a lot of superhero movies, not all, they end up with an ending that I think of as the James Bond ending, where we have a final showdown with the bad guy with tons of henchmen in some giant structure. And I've just seen so many action movies in my life, so many James Bond movies alone, and I love James Bond movies, but it always takes the air out of me at the end. So I think I kind of lost interest to some extent in the Iron Man movie right at the end with that kind of big, what I think of as the big James Bond ending. Although I still think they made very good use of their version of Extremis. So overall, I'd say it's a good movie. Take off your fan hat if you're really attached to certain things about the Iron Man legacy. But in comic books themselves, they're constantly throwing things away or redoing the legacy in such a way that old fans don't recognize it. For me right now with Captain America, and although I like it with Thor, they've kind of thrown a lot away there too. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Iron Man. It is interesting now that we live in this time where there's so much interaction between the movies and the comics. I think Marvel tries too hard to make the surface of some of their work, like by changing Nick Fury to a black guy and that kind of thing, make the surface too much like the movies without looking deeper into what made the new movie version of Nick Fury kind of cool, or the new movie version of Iron Man kind of cool. Really maybe explore there and go from there. Learn something from what the movies have done, rather than just take the surfaces. But although my preference would be just ignore the movies and do the damn best comic book you can. Anyhow, Sleepy Reader out. Talk to you all later.